just let me invite Vessy on stage, actually. She can join us, and then you take it away. So Vessy, welcome to the stage. How can I do this properly? You know, this is the first time I've worked with this. There we go. Vessy, welcome. Good to see you.
It's great to see you, Hung. It's always great to see you. Very excited to be here. Thanks to ToTalent for the invite today, and I'm really excited to be kicking off the 3 days. Hung, maybe while you're still here, I want to ask the audience a question. So just gonna pop it in here. So are you familiar with the jobs to be done framework? I've also posted it to the participants so they can also answer. So far, the answers are no. Are you familiar, Hung? Have you heard of jobs to be done?
You've put me on the spot here. I'm going to say no, so that the audience doesn't feel so bad.
Okay. So the results that I see currently, 9% say yes and 91% say no. Okay, so jobs to be done is a framework for customer needs. But today we will be using it for the talent needs, and you can see how that relates to recruitment. Okay, thanks, Hung. I'm not putting you on the spot anymore.
No worries. I think it's going to be exciting to see that, and thanks for asking the audience a question. Let me leave the stage to you at this point, Vessy. Go ahead and take it away.
Awesome, thanks. Okay, so I'll be sharing my screen now. Okay, perfect. If any issues with the screen sharing, Hung, feel free to jump in and let me know. Yeah, so today we'll be talking about inclusive leadership and the science behind why we stay or leave a job. And you can see how that relates to diversity, to recruitment, and you learn a little bit how it relates to the jobs to be done framework. I'm Vessy, and I'm the founder of Vessy.com. So the jobs to be done framework is typically applied to product research, analyzing customer needs. But a while back, I started using it for marketing purposes, and later on for understanding the needs of the talent. So here I've illustrated how it typically works. So, we have a current job and we're looking at a new job. And there are different areas, there are problems with our current jobs that are pushing us towards the new job. There are also things that are attractive to the new job, that's also pushing us in that same direction. At the same time, there are things that are existing habits. They keep us in the current job. And then there are anxieties and uncertainties related to this change that are also keeping us in the existing job. And, we don't feel making a change. So that's a very basic concept. I want to give you just a second so you can look at it before we move forward. And if it was like product, it would be switching products, or if it was marketing, it would be like, again, attracting customers. Okay, so when we look at this framework, we're thinking about a few things. So one of them are what are the forces here? So what is bringing us from current job to new job, or pushing us away from a new job so we stay with the current job? Then we'll be also looking at the power of those forces, so meaning how important they are to us. So the forces can be very individual. Their power is also very individual. Very simple example, maybe when we're in our early 20s, first or second job, we're not too we're not too busy thinking, what's the healthcare package? But maybe when we're our 30s, 40s, 50s, and so on, that becomes of an increasing importance. So the power of that force is, in this case, like the healthcare benefit would be increasing. And then depending on, whether this is a force that pushes us towards the new job or keeps us with the current job, it has a plus or minus sign. It will make more sense as we get into detail. So up until recently, but we're thinking about jobs the following way. Maybe no one's boss is perfect. So maybe we would have like occasional problems with my boss. We need to schedule a meeting to get back on the same page. Existing habits, let's say I have great colleagues, I have a nice office, I have a competitive salary and benefits. But what would potentially attract me to a new job Maybe there is an opportunity for career growth. Maybe they're offering more senior roles, so that would be exciting. But something that is, keeping me with the existing job is, if I was to change my job, I might be potentially facing a longer commute, and that wouldn't be great, right? So the top ones would be with a plus sign, and depending on how important it was, it could be anything between, let's say, 1 to 10. So let's say occasional problems with my boss, maybe that's like a 3 or 4. It doesn't seem the severity of it is too high. Career growth for a more senior role, that could be exciting. Let's say that's a 7. So we have some. There is enough energy for us to be considering this, but then we have the colleagues, we have the salary component, we're happy where we are, and we really don't want to commute. So we're probably not making the change in this example. I think when we were looking at things with factors like that some time ago, it all felt very safe, warm, mushy. In a way, it felt comfortable. Not to say that any change is not stressful, or that we don't go for like very, very, very challenging jobs, but there was a level of stability and predictability. And what we're facing today is our day-to-day sense of belonging is bombarded, and it's happening every day. It's hatred, it's racism, it's lockdowns. There is yet another wave of lockdowns across Europe at the moment. I'm in Dublin. We've been in lockdown since December, and it looks like we will be in a severe lockdown until the end of June. So not exciting for my sense of belonging. It affects our mental health. So these are major like macro events that are happening to us. So how does it affect us as human beings? It affects our sense of trust, empathy, hope, and stability. And we kind of don't get a break from that. As a result, they all contribute to, they're very powerful contributors to that intensify our level of anxiety, our level of stress, depression, burnout, PTSD. We should also stress on the importance of how PTSD, for example, can be shared as a community. Like, so let's say with the Asian population facing at the moment, or like with Black Lives Matter, seeing how a specific ethnic group is facing tremendous challenges, it affects every single person. They don't have to experiencing it themselves, this person to be feeling that. So it also creates a lot of the symptoms of a PTSD. When I was doing the 2 reports, the 2019 Diversity in the Workplace report and the 2020 Diversity in the Workplace report, we were comparing where different areas of diversity and inclusion were ranking for various companies across geographies, across industries. And you can see the reports on Vessy.com. So some of the companies featured like NHS, Spotify, Blinkist, like really, really diverse. Like the Ink Factory is a tattoo piercing shop in here in Dublin, and the Free Association is an improv school out of London. So very different companies. So when we were looking at that, mental health was in 2019, it was on the lowest position. It was on the 12th position at the time. Just a year later, in Q1, when I was publishing the 2020 Diversity Workplace report, it was in the 7th position. In just a matter of months, it became the #1 position. And maybe you're wondering, yeah, of course it's #1, but what does it mean? So when I work with clients, I ask their employees to rate how interested they are in different areas. And we saw a huge interest in mental health. It grew to like 71, 75%. That's on average for different clients for mental health, and 57 to 75% for remote working, hybrid remote. And why is this important? These are things that you will see really affect the factors that we will now be seeing in regards to the factors in our jobs to be framework for talent needs. So, as employees or as employers, we're all hoping that everyone will be productive and engaged and learn fast. And what we need as individuals is to find ways today more than ever to feel calm, to feel confident, to find sources to stay creative, curious, to be connected, to be able to feel compassionate, to be courageous, and to stay clear-headed. And that's very challenging when we don't have any or very few recreational opportunities outside. So how has this equation changed, the one we were looking at earlier? What new factors have come into place? So one of the biggest problems, or one of the, a significant problem that many people are facing right now is that they're forced to live in an expensive city while they would actually move back to their home city, maybe for a year until things settle down or whatever. So, let's say someone has moved to London, they have a job with, I don't know, Facebook. Now they don't get to experience any great things about living in London. They only have, or Amsterdam, they only have the the expensive side of it, the expensive housing and so on. But if they could move back, let's say Spain or Italy or whatever, that would be a really nice ratio for them. So that is a problem with their current job. Many companies have not been created to work in collaboration or async, something that we have seen is really needed with hybrid remote or any form of remote working. So working in silos is very problematic for people when it contributes to their burnout. So again, we see it as a problem with the current job, and the majority of companies are reflective of that. At the same time, people feel like, okay, I have some good friends at work who I trust. I do feel supported by the company. I have some good benefits in place. Maybe the overall package is pretty good, so it gives me a sense of stability. So if the first are pushing us towards the new job, the latter ones are keeping us where we are. So I've put some scores here. Of course, it doesn't mean that these are the forces that will be for every single person you're trying to attract to your company. But it's very important to be aware of those, and also think about it as like, using this framework, do we make sure we identify which are the forces that are important for them? So they're very individual, and the power of those forces is also very individual. So looking at them, let's see, what is attracting us to the new job? Okay, so maybe the new company is more inclusive. They really stand out with inclusive leadership. There is a sense of autonomy there, not just the role, but the way the company is operating. They're extremely flexible with remote working. So maybe they have the infrastructure in place that you can be, in any country in Europe for as long as you want. There won't be any tax or legal complications around how long you want to spend and where. So, maybe you want to leave Amsterdam for 6 months or for 12 months and, move back to, I don't know, Barcelona, or I don't know, Malaga. And then go back to Amsterdam, and the company set up in a way, they have the infrastructure in place that allows for that to happen. Anxieties. So many people are really struggling at the moment with putting applications forward because they're struggling with a burnout. So as we said, the issue with lack of recreational opportunities, but also so many interviews, so many assignments. They're applying for multiple roles, plus their job is becoming more demanding over the last 12 months now. So, this is something that's really keeping away people from changing their jobs right now. Now, it also means they won't be able to meet people, their new colleagues in person. That could be a significant minus for many people. And just any sense of change, any change is potentially making them even more anxious. So assuming these are, the scores that your candidates will give, in this case, they pretty much balance out. It's just 1.0 for stay, but even if it was the same, they'll probably stay. It doesn't seem like it's worth the risk yet. However, the power changes over time. So, for example, if during the first lockdown, maybe the second lockdown, I felt like I'm living in an expensive city and I'd rather be somewhere else, my need to move is gradually increasing because I become less and less patient of how this ratio is working out for me. Working in silos, like contributing to my burnout. So again, my patience towards that is decreasing, and it creates more and more urgency for me to be considering a new job where this will be less of the case, where I can have a more autonomous job, a more autonomous role, or the company is set up in a way that allows for autonomy. Then maybe yes, I still feel supported. I still have good friends where I work, but if I feel constantly isolated and I like the environment to succeed in my job because of my boss and because of working in silos, now it becomes like a factor on its own, and it changes the ratio significantly. So yes, I'm really close to a burnout anyway, and I am anxious about introducing more change to a life with a lot of lacking predictability. But I still feel at least I will have control over my job. That's something so many people are struggling right now. You can plan holidays, you can plan anything really, but you can at least plan your workday. So if they have this chunk of stability, it's a very attractive element here. So in this case, for inclusive leadership, autonomy, and extremely flexible remote working conditions. So if we just take away all of the other information, just look at those few examples. So which ones of those have anything to do with inclusive leadership? I feel isolated and lack the environment to succeed in my job. Clearly, it's not a very inclusive environment, or it's not a very, the leadership is not aware how to make you feel included if you feel isolated. And in an inclusive environment, or with inclusive leadership in the picture, you wouldn't lack the environment to succeed in your job. It would take into account your challenges. You'll get the support that you need, and that support can be, being given hope, stability, the leadership being empathetic to your needs. It can be established on trust. Now, if you're forced to live here rather than somewhere else, again, it's about inclusion. It's about stability. You need something that you can rely on. Working in silos, it's typically yes, it's typically in companies that have grown significantly, but very often it's because of lack of trust or lack of empathy. So it's at the expense of the regular employee, because some people would just want to make sure they have control over every single decision. So it is about trust and empathy. I have a few good friends at work who I trust. I feel supported. It's about trust and empathy here, and then the stability of the benefits. And when we have stability, we're also more likely to be hopeful. So they're all connected. And inclusive leadership, it's obvious. Autonomy, I think it's the best example probably for trust and hope. So each one of those is a combination of trust, empathy, home, and stability in a sense. Close to burnout, we need someone who empathizes where we are with everything that we face at the moment, and it will be like that for quite a while. Can meet new colleagues in person. So if you are the recruiter, where you're hoping to attract the new talent to, how can we change that in some way that will feel almost like in person? What are ways we can work around it so we can ease that anxiety? Okay, so when we look at this, when we look at that framework, we don't just work on the things that attract people to the new job. We can think about what are the things that give them anxiety about making the change, and how can we ease those? Okay, so understanding their problems, we can acknowledge their pain, show them how we're addressing those, and then understanding their anxiety, easing those, and hopefully we have something that also mirrors their existing. It's, oh, you have, you feel supported, or you get great benefits. We do have that, and we can address that. So, the bottom line here is the price of non-inclusive leadership is literally your annual attrition cost. And I know many of you work in companies where the targets for recruitment are really ambitious. A lot of my clients have really exceptionally high targets as well. Like growing the headcount 50% or doubling the headcount. There isn't really space for any attrition. And at the end of the day, we don't want the recruiters to be burned out either. So yeah, think about the leaking bucket, or the solid bucket, and how can we leverage the framework, or this concept of like the jobs to be done framework, in this case for talent needs. So if we understand the needs of our talent, we can be better at engaging them. We can be better at attracting them, then we can be better at engaging them, but also keeping them in the company. So it's knowledge that we can leverage at any point of the user in this case, the employee journey. We can maybe talk in the Q&A on how you can do this type of research. But if you have any questions, I would be really happy to answer them. So I'll stop sharing my screen, Hung, and we can jump into the Q&A.
Cool. Let me come back to you. Share screen with you there, Vessy. Thank you very much for fascinating talk. You gave me a kind of a framework of this before this session, but yeah, to hear you kind of lay it out there really did remind me of how much value it is to sometimes bring different concepts from outside of traditional recruiting industry that we can apply to the case here. I particularly like the idea that the personal relationships, the sense of sort of friendship is critical for retention. I think we intuitively feel that's true, right? If you have powerful friendships in a certain place, you don't want to necessarily leave that because you might not replicate those relationships. And you're saying that actually this pandemic has really had like this hidden impact on that sense of connection, because we haven't seen our friends for that long period of time. I certainly haven't. I mean, I haven't seen anybody for a year. It's like ridiculous. So of course, your relationships have eroded that way. When you started this research, I reckon you started this prior to lockdown. Is that correct? So you did so can you take us through a little bit about, what did you see as the impact of the lockdown in particular for the responses that you received? Because I presume that, taking a snapshot of life 2019 to 2021, we're talking like a huge shift, right? So have you spotted anything in particular that's worth sort of discussing with the crowd here?
Yeah, I think like everyone needs some kind of mental health support right now, to different extent, and everyone is looking for a company where they can get that. So in a world where people cannot get any sense of stability, like, okay, so for example, you kind of rely on the government for updates, but in some ways that can be an example of a leadership team that's not necessarily very inclusive, right? Because they have a very specific goal to stay in government. And the big joke now is that have you seen that like abusive relationships? It's like a circle of abusive relationships, and like they gaslight you and they say it's your fault, and just like if you go through the different stages, you're like, and then they'll put the blame on you. So like if they're mismanaged, they'll put the blame on you. So we're in a situation where all of the things that bring structure to our life, our family, our friends, society, community, a government, anything that we would typically do that also defines who we are. Maybe you play tennis or you play soccer or you just watch rugby, whatever it is. Things that define who we are not there. So many of us have had their identity lost to some extent, but also the one thing where we have some level of predictability is our job. That's assuming, right. we're in tech. So for the most part, at least you can find a new job if something is happening in your industry, like if you're in travel tech or whatever. So as an employee, you need to provide stability. And the more empathetic you are, the more listening you are to people's needs, to hear, why would someone be staying like in Dublin or Amsterdam or London when they can pay a third of the rent, or even move in with their parents, save for their mortgage and come back? And, that is a huge shift that I think changes the dynamics. At the same time, we do see a lot of talent entering the talent pool from industries where there has been a lot of have been let go. So there is more supply at the moment for talent and less jobs on the market in a way. So it's a very tricky one.
There's two things you've talked about there, Vessy, I want to just explore a little bit further because I think they're fascinating. Firstly, this concept of a job providing structure, which is the case. I mean, I'm the biggest critic of the 9-to-5, right? So that structure I rejected a long time ago. I'd never go back to it. I'm sure all of us, when you think about having to clock in and clock out, that's the nightmare. But there is a but to that, in the sense that it does provide an idea that this is very predictable. So we know when life gets unpredictable, that's where anxiety goes through the roof, right? It's when you don't know what's going to happen. That gray area is super, super stressful, high stress. And it almost doesn't need to matter whether the options are positive or negative. You can have like a potentially positive thing happening. You're waiting for something to happen. It's still highly anxious because you're not sure whether it is going to happen. So what companies can do is try and create some sort of consistent, regular, reliable thing that they're doing that can just say this is always going to happen. So for instance, some companies I know do they've continued the habit, but they do like a Friday update on a particular thing that they care about, and it's just a regular thing that comes out on a particular moment. Everyone can expect it on Friday. It happens that time, and it just provides just that one stability in this huge kind of canvas of almost too much flexibility that we have right now. There's people watching this who, a couple of hours time, stay until the end of the show, folks, but a couple of hours time, they may decide, hey, take a nap. They could do that. No big deal. We all have the ability to do it because we're all living and working from the same places. But to have a rhythm from the company, I think super useful. You about to say something, Vessy?
I'm typing in a question for the audience. Do you take a nap in the middle of the workday? I'm very curious what the answers will be.
Anybody who doesn't answer yes is a liar. We know it.
Wow, the answers are fluctuating so much. I'm a huge fan of power naps, and even when I was working in an office, I would make sure that there's like a couch I would have access to, so I can, boost my energy when I need to. Okay, so 36% yes and 64% no.
This is a segue to naps, so I hope people don't sort of mind me indulging Vessy and I on this. But Vessy, did you see this device? I think this was back in the day when the idea of going back to the office was like definitely going to happen. So this is like nearly a year ago now. But I think somebody invented a desk that had a napping area. So it was like designed in a way that actually the bottom of it was a bed. Like they literally built in with the concept that, if you asking this person to sit there for 8 hours a day, this person should be able to have a kit. Why not? Anyway, so
see, I don't need that because I have the couch right here.
You have the couch right there. Don't we all? We need to have this type of relaxation. Okay, so there's some good things there, and I'd love to hear what the crowd thinks. But to create a cadence, like a regular thing that you do that can signal structure to whatever audience you seek to address, I think can be super helpful. And just putting my recruiter hat on, I just wonder if you're hiring for a bunch of people, it might be useful for you to communicate something very regularly to this audience or talent audience that you're recruiting, and just to keep saying this is what's happening every week, every month, every day, similar to how I do Brain Food, right? It happens every Sunday. And it did occur to me towards the middle of last year that actually people really, I wouldn't say dependent on it, but they were really happy that it was there, because the world was just chaotic everywhere. We couldn't predict anything, but you could predict the email coming in your inbox every Sunday morning. It was always going to happen, People knew that if Godzilla came down and destroyed the city, it would still be the case. The email is going to happen. So I just wonder whether maybe recruiters can think about doing that. If they're hiring from outside, create the sense of stability, for instance, create a ritual that you're communicating to the market in some way. Maybe that makes you and the company you represent potentially more attractive as a business. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think rituals is the word here. So it doesn't have to be, something that you necessarily need to do at the same time, because it kills a little bit the opportunity for autonomy and flexible working and so on. But it could be something that gives the sense of stability and reliability without necessarily having to, force people into being a meeting at like 10 a.m. or on Monday or 5 p.m. Friday or whatever it is. So, we don't have to be that literal in the application of it necessarily. It could be something else where we still give the opportunity for people to have that space. That could be a one-on-one with your manager, for example. So it's your space, or it could be the predictability of, for example, employee assistance programs are typically they cover a very small amount of sessions. Let's say your predictability is like you get as much mental health support as you need. All of your expenses with therapists will be, you can get reimbursed for them. That is an incredible level of predictability that doesn't have to do with meetings with your colleagues, for example.
I'm going to throw something in here which you might not like. Okay, so here's an idea. It's just the idea just occurred to me, but it occurred to me that you may not like it. But I'm going to just roll with it anyway. So what we're talking about here, though, is sometimes autonomy is generally good. I think most people like to have a sense of control, but I wonder whether, if in a chaotic environment, I wonder whether people might just feel, you're giving me too many choices, boss. You know what I mean? It's like, give me we're talking about structure, so just give me some guardrails. Like, give me something that I know I can choose within this frame, but don't not give me the frame, because otherwise I feel frozen from having overly too much choice. So I wonder whether, I think you're right, autonomy is super important in the sense, giving employees choice with the presumption that, they're happy to exercise those choices, very positive. But I wonder whether sometimes it might be worth just to, funnel people in. And the reason why I'm saying this, by the way, is because I want everyone later on to join me on the speed dating. Oh yes, there's a speed dating exercise later. And I know if I give people the choice, someone's going to do it. And I'll be having that terrible experience, Vessy, of going on a speed date and just waiting for nothing to happen. I've been there. It's not nice. Don't put me in that position anymore. But anyway, so get ready for the speed dating, super speed networking later on. Vessy, we're running short on time, so I just wanted to kind of touch one more point with you on this. Mental health is obviously top priority. Everyone talks about it. Everyone agrees that's the case. What do you think about the sort of this movement to remote working versus on-site working versus on-premise? Everyone is going to say, yeah, we want to do the hybrid style. But do you anticipate any potential like mental health challenges with the hybrid model?
Yeah. It has to do again with what you were saying. Is it chaos or is it autonomy? Like autonomy and chaos should be on different ends of the spectrum, right? So if we have objectives and key results, OKRs in place, that should be autonomy. We have enough space to be free, to explore, to experiment, but it's not chaos because we have focus. And actually, at the moment, I'm authoring a white paper on OKRs in diversity and inclusion because we rarely see impact. So people get even more lost in that space. In regards to hybrid or remote or like virtual first and so on, I've been working remotely on my own, even with companies before as an employee for many years now. Isolation and loneliness can be very severe. So we need things in place. Like if you just feel, oh, I just wake up to go to work and then I go to bed so that I can go to work tomorrow, which is kind of the place in many, kind of the situation for many people right now. This is very depressing. Like what's the point of waking up? You see where it's going. So for some people, they would feel more depressed. Other people will feel more anxious. So how do we support people in growing their autonomy and sense of self-worth and developing their identity outside of work? Again, therapy is a very key element here, and people should have access to that. So while we're saving on, having an office space and the insurance for that and the electricity and whatever, it's not too expensive to actually cover costs like that. It's it's something that I have been working on for a while, the intersection of mental health and diversity and inclusion. And I'm also taking some courses in psychotherapy now in preparation for a master's in psychotherapy starting in the fall. It's critical that we work on those things together. People haven't been so isolated ever, despite being so connected with the internet.
Do you know what? It's interesting you mentioned just in psychotherapy, Vessy, because I read somewhere earlier this week that actually one of the future skills, if you like, that HR and recruiting people might actually want to acquire are exactly these sort of counseling skills. I don't want to use the word therapy because that's like a professional term to describe someone who's been trained over years. But something of a skill set that is approximate to that might actually be something that is super important for people who work in the people departments. So again, super interesting to see how it impacts our function in this going forward. Vessy, listen, thank you so much for your session. Actually, one more question. I've just noticed Danny Stacey, who's coming on, but let me just field this quickly for you, Vessy. One practical thing that business leaders can do that, is a do today, do tomorrow kind of implementation that might be a step forward.
Use OKRs for your D&I work and see where D&I fits into your business strategy. If you don't do any of those two, you won't get diversity in recruitment. You will get a leaking pipeline of diverse talent. Like it just, OKRs in D&I and defining where D&I fits into your business strategy.
Yep. Fantastic. Vessy Tasheva, thank you so much for joining us. Wonderful to have you on stage and to hear your wisdom.